The number of unemployed persons has decreased by 269,000 between the second and third quarter of 2022. That's according to Statistics South Africa. We speak now to Newzroom Africa's Ntokozo, who is standing by with the Statistician-General Risenga Maluleke. Good afternoon to you, Ntokozo. Which sectors in the economy actually drove employment?
Hi, Dudu. How are you? Well, we certainly did get some positive news out of Stats SA today. And those sectors that were driving employment number in the third quarter include manufacturing, construction, and transport. While we did see some job losses in finance, mining, and agriculture, over 204,000 jobs were created between the second quarter of the year and the third quarter. And now I'm joined by Statistician-General Risenga Maluleke to unpack some of those numbers. Now, the drop in the unemployment rate is encouraging. Could you just help us unpack where we saw those significant moves in the third quarter?
Let me start off by saying that our job as Stats SA is never to be discouraged or to be encouraged by numbers, because sometimes we produce numbers that show that we are not gaining jobs. But as regards the whole issue of jobs, I don't want us to look at the third quarter alone. I want us to look at the second quarter coming out of the first quarter. There were about 648,000 jobs gained between the first and the second quarter. Now, again in the third quarter coming out of the second quarter, there are about 204,000 jobs gained. So we are seeing an increase in the number of jobs. Whereas on the side of the unemployed, we are seeing a decrease. In the first quarter to second quarter, we had seen a decrease by 132,000 jobs. Now we are seeing a decrease by 269,000 jobs. So with an increase in employment and a decrease in unemployment, our unemployment rate is declining. As of now, in the third quarter that we are reporting on, it has declined by 1 percentage point from 33.9% to 32.9%. Having said so, we are seeing that even the discouraged work seekers, in terms of their movements, as well as those that would have taken up employment. So we are seeing that in the second quarter, we were sitting at about 12.3 million expanded unemployment people that were not having jobs. But as of now, we are sitting at 11.9 million. So the expanded unemployment rate is decreasing as well. Women in general and young people still remain vulnerable to labor markets. Young people 15 to 24 years, we can see that their unemployment rate is still sitting very high, sitting at about 59.6%, having decreased by about 1.8 percentage points from the previous quarter. But when we look at those not in employment, education or training, especially for those age cohort 15 to 24, we are sitting with about 3.5 million out of a total population of that cohort at 10.2 million. So certainly young people pull it hard. But when you look at women, particularly black African women, they are far above the national average, sitting at about 39.1% unemployment rate versus the national one, which is sitting at 32.9%.
Can we unpack a little bit that expanded definition of unemployment, especially when it comes to just comparing the people who have given up looking for work and those long-term numbers? What has, pushed that increase in the long-term unemployment?
I want us to separate the expanded unemployment rate in relation to your discouraged work seeker, because it speaks to something different from those that are in long-term unemployment. Firstly, we are having 7.7 million people who are unemployed. Those represent the headline figure of 32.9%. Over and above that, we have about 3.5 million discouraged work seekers, as well as another 700,000 who didn't look for employment for other reasons other than discouragement, but who would have taken up employment had it been available. Those come to 11.9 million. That is the expanded unemployment rate, which is sitting at about 43.1%. Having said so, now let us go and look at those in long-term unemployment. And we are talking about those in long-term unemployment based on the 7.7 million people who are in our headline figure of the official unemployment rate. we are sitting with about 1.8 million people who are actually not in long term. That is, when we say long term, it's 12 months and beyond. Now, these ones are unemployed for less than 12 months. Now, the others, which account for 77%, are in long-term unemployment, meaning that for more than 12 months they haven't been employed. This figure of those in long-term unemployment has been hovering around 65 to about 68% over a period of time, except during the time of hardest levels of lockdown. Now, after lockdown, it has been sitting at about similar levels. Now it's rising steadily, sitting at 77% as of the third quarter of 2022.
Now, as you rightfully said, that the youth, are pulling a little hard when it comes to getting employment. And I think one of the major concerns has been that even amongst graduates or young people that are graduates, they're also facing that uphill battle of finding employment. What did the data in Q3 show when it comes to young people and the importance of education in actually securing employment?
Generally, before we talk about young people, people with matric or less, their unemployment rate is higher than the national average. But as we talk in terms of those who are graduates and other tertiary qualifications, we see that their unemployment rate is lower. The unemployment rate for graduates is sitting at about 10%. It usually goes between 10 and 12%, meaning that education, as well as training, assists our people to get out there and pick up jobs. Having said so, when you look at the drivers of poverty in our country from other data that we have produced previously, we are seeing that 11% is accounted for by education, as well as about 52% accounted for by employment. So when people are not educated or are not trained or they don't have skills, they are not able to get employment and they remain poor.
Thank you so much for talking to us this morning. And we hear for ourselves what some of the challenges, and I think, youth unemployment remains kind of at the crux of the matter when it comes to unemployment rates in South Africa, and obviously those, African women also being vulnerable in the labor market is some of the stats that came out today.